looks like the Red Sox dugout is going to look a little bit different next year. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corb. We know there are a bunch of changes going on in the front office, probably with the players on the field. Now there's going to be a bunch of changes going on with the coaches as well, because just a couple of hours ago, it was announced that a couple of different coaches will be leaving the Boston Red Sox. Essentially, they were fired. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to talk about the two coaches that have officially been confirmed to not be coming back in 2024, why these decisions may have been made, what was the reasoning behind them, and we're going to be talking about what this means for the future of the Red Sox. What happens now that they're gone? What does that process look like? All that good stuff. But before we get into that, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so like I said in the intro, there were a couple different people who were announced to not be returning as a coach for the Boston Red Sox. The first one of those people is Dave Bush, who was officially announced just a couple of hours ago that he will not be returning to the 2024 team. Now, Dave Bush has been with the Boston Red Sox since 2016, and actually about 4 years ago, almost exactly on Halloween 2019, Dave Bush was officially named the pitching coach of the Boston Red Sox. Now, since taking over, Dave Bush's Red Sox pitching staff has looked a little something like this. Since the start of 2020, Red Sox have a 4.56 team ERA in 546 games. They had a team whip of 1.38. Their walks per nine were sitting at 3.1, and their Ks per nine were at 9.4. Now, are these the worst stats in the world? No, but they're certainly well below average towards the bottom third of the league over the last 4 years. On top of that, too, the last couple of years, it's been pretty striking just how poor the Red Sox pitching staff has been. In 2022, last year, they finished with the 6th highest ERA in all of baseball, sitting at 4.53. They also had the 8th most home runs allowed in Major League Baseball, the 10th highest amount of walks in Major League Baseball at 526, and the 6th highest whip in all of baseball at 1.35. Now, this year wasn't a whole lot better. Did they improve in some areas? Yes, but the improvements were very marginal, and you started to see a decrease in other areas. For example, they went from the 6th worst ERA in baseball to the 10th worst ERA in baseball at 4.48. They had the 7th most home runs allowed in baseball at 208. Their walks went way down, which is a good thing. They're now in the top half of major league teams at the 19th most in baseball, and their whip improved by just 0.01 points, all the way down from 1.35 to 1.34 in 2023. Now, is all of this Dave Bush's fault? Absolutely not, right? There are a lot of factors outside of just the coaching staff as to why the Red Sox struggled with pitching in 2022. A lot of it had to do with the fact that you didn't have anyone in the back end of your bullpen. You were losing games. You were not getting a lot of production from the guys that were brought in for this bullpen. Then on top of that too, at one point you had literally every rotational pitcher on your staff on the injured list. There were at one point, I think 4 or 5 rookies that pitched in a row. It was the first time since World War II that happened, right? There were some outside circumstances in 2022, and it was very similar to 2023, right? Dave Bush is not the reason the Red Sox relied on 2 veteran starters who were coming off of major injuries in James Paxton and Chris Sale. Dave Bush is not the reason the Red Sox relied on Corey Kluber to give them a lot of starts, and he's not the reason that outside of those guys, everyone else on your pitching staff was unproven and has a very high ceiling but a very low floor, right? Those were not on Dave Bush, but there were some things over the past couple of years that started to stick out that could be pointed back towards the Red Sox coaching in terms of their pitching, right? One of the big things, in my opinion, has to do with the development of the youth for the Red Sox. They've had some wins this year for sure. Pivetta, Cutter, Winkowski all took bigger steps forward than we were anticipating at the beginning of the year, although there are some caveats to that, right? Josh Winkowski could only pitch 1 or 2 innings, then he got exposed. Cutter Crawford couldn't make it past 4 innings, but he looked really good when he was able to get the ball rolling. It just didn't happen that often. And Nick Pivetta wasn't looking great as a start at the beginning of the year, so half of his season was really great, the other half was not. So those wins were also met with caveats, and on top of that too, it felt like some of your other young talent, such as Houck and Whitlock, didn't take the steps forwards that we were expecting, right? Garrett Whitlock, there were injuries. Tanner Houck, obviously there were injuries, but when they were on the diamond, it felt like they were doing the same mistakes over and over again, and the Red Sox were just allowing them to make those mistakes. It's obviously that's not what was happening, but that's what it felt like, right? It felt like the solutions to their mistakes was to keep doing what they're doing and see if it eventually works out, and you just kept seeing the same results over and over and over again. It just felt like in terms of the steps that should have been taken by a lot of these really young, talented players just were not there. The other thing I like to point to when I'm talking about why it might be a good thing that Dave Bush is being moved on from is the bullpen relievers this year, right? The Red Sox held on to Ryan Brazier for what felt like way too long. They kept saying, oh, there's more there. We believe there's more there. And the team just could not get anything out of him, right? So eventually they give up on him. They're like, all right, we tried everything. Fine. He goes to the Dodgers, and immediately in the second half of the season, he has a 0.70 ERA in 39 plus innings. To compare that to what he did with the Red Sox, Ryan Brazier had an over 7 ERA in 22 innings, right? That's a huge difference. And if the Red Sox front office or the analytics department or whoever kept realizing that that was in there, then yeah, it might be on the coaching staff, specifically the pitching coaching staff, that they weren't able to unlock that with Ryan Brazier. Brazier's not the only one, right? Zach Lytle went to Tampa Bay and did really well, and there are a couple more examples over the last couple of years of guys leaving the Boston Red Sox and going on to do much better in other organizations. That ultimately comes back and looks bad on the coaching staff. The other person whose name was mentioned as someone who will not be coming back in 2024 is Carlos Febles, and that kind of sucks, right? Because Febles has been around this organization since 2007 as a coach, 2004 as a player in their minor league system. Going into the 2018 season, he finally gained his position of third base coach and infield instructor, and then immediately went on to win a World Series. But when we're talking about Carlos Febles, it's almost exactly the same conversation that we just had with Dave Bush, right? Because when you're looking at the infield defense for the Boston Red Sox, over the last couple of years, you've seen some really concerning results. Now, again, when we're talking about this, is it all Febles' fault? Just like, was it all Bush's fault? No, right? Obviously, of course not. Carlos Febles wasn't the reason the Red Sox didn't have a shortstop this season. Carlos Febles wasn't the reason the Red Sox tried to go with Bobby Dahlbeck and Frangie Cordero as a platoon in 2020, right? He was not responsible for that, but there are some signs here that, hey, maybe someone else, a different perspective, might push the Red Sox in a different direction. For example, Rafael Devers taken a massive step backwards defensively this year. Now, was that because there was no Xander or no Story next to him at third base, and he felt as though he needed to be the leader of that half of the diamond, which he just simply is not? Possibly, but it also could be mechanically, it could be headspace stuff, and that's stuff that you work on with your infield instructor. That also felt like outside of Story this season, anyone who started in the middle infield for the Boston Red Sox all of a sudden got plagued by these errors. Kike was the biggest offender, but you saw it with David Hamilton, you saw it with Pablo Reyes, you even saw it with Yu Chang once in a while, right? There are always these weird errors all over the place. What does that say about the infield instructor, right? It took a while for Tristan Casas to figure it out. Now, again, is the coaching for the Red Sox on the infield the only reason why the Red Sox infield struggled this year? No, of course not, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it felt like this year, when we're talking about Carlos Febles and Dave Bush, honestly, it felt like there were much more losses than there were wins, right? There were more times where it felt like organizationally, the Red Sox could not get someone to where they need to go than times where the organization actually brought them to where they needed to go, right? Specifically in 2023 with the defense and the pitching. It just felt like there were more losses than wins, and I don't know. Maybe this is a good thing for the Boston Red Sox. I personally think it will be. I think bringing in a new perspective, both on the pitching side of things and on the defense side of things, will not only bring a new light to the Boston Red Sox and hopefully push them in maybe a better direction, but it will also hopefully get the Red Sox to a point where there are more wins than there are losses, which is just simply not happening right now. So in my opinion, when we're looking at the overall theme, it sucks, right? It sucks to see people lose their jobs, human beings lose their jobs. Febles had been with this organization for almost 20 years, right? He was going on to his year 17 season, and that's really, really impressive. But at the same time, too, it feels like the Red Sox needed a new direction, and this feels to me like the perfect place to start with your pitching and your infield defense. As for what this means for the Boston Red Sox, well, it means that the Red Sox now have two holes to dig themselves out of. They need to get a GM, which is obviously super important, and they also need to figure out who's going to be in the dugout in 2024. Now, those things usually can't happen without the GM, right? So this will be pretty telling as to truly how much power Alex Cora has in the organization. If the Red Sox immediately have a new pitching and third base coach / infield instructor, yeah, it's pretty clear Alex Cora is pulling a lot of strings. But if they wait and allow the new GM to come in here and work with Alex Cora to find someone else, which is what I think they will do, I think we will see a GM hire before we see a new coaching hire. I think that's the smart decision by the Boston Red Sox. But either way, it feels like we're going to be waiting a pretty decent amount of time before we get some answers as to who's going to be the pitching and defense infield wise for the Boston Red Sox. So buckle up and strap in. But this is overall, in my opinion, a good thing, right? They're changing things up. They're trying different things to try and get the Red Sox back to a good point overall organizationally. It just sucks that it happens to come with people losing their jobs. But that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think of all this? What do you think of the firings? What do you think about the exact people that got fired? What do you think about the new direction the Red Sox should go in? Let me know all your thoughts on the latest firings of multiple coaches by the Boston Red Sox in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. Helps these videos out a ton, and it would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.